Well, I always thought when I read the script that there was a specific styles and the type of animation that that the film should have. I mean, the best technique was always done by Disney, and the most interesting characters were done at Warner Brothers.
Hey, what's up, Doc?
And Tex Avery always did, in my opinion, the funniest humor.
Have a good day, sir.
That's what I wanted in the characters, the combination of those three.
You heard me, I said drop it.
Roger, darling!
Yes, it's me, my dearest. I'd love to embrace you, but first, I have to satisfy my sense of moral outrage.
Gun down, you buck-toothed fool!
I always knew the technique was going to work because I had a great animator in Richard Williams who understood the tone of the movie, and he's an absolute genius.
I'll save you, baby!
The 40s cartoons, they all look like clowns. So I took the orange hair and the droopy head and semi-Bugs Bunny cheeks and Porky Pig's bow tie, Goofy's pants, and Mickey Mouse's yellow hands from the 40s. And then I thought the color, well, the thing is, I'll draw it like an American flag. There's a white rabbit with red things and a blue bow tie, and it looks like an American flag, subliminally, so everybody liked it.
At one stage, when I was looking at the animation of Roger, I looked at his ears. And once I started focusing on his ears, it was like ballet. And in fact, Richard told me he was sort of mimicking the motion of these ears, sort of based on like ballet motion and movements. In fact, it was like a physical indication of the emotions of this character.
Get out of that chair!
I mean, the thing about we animators is we're observant. Our brains may be atrophied in ways, but we're like children in that we haven't lost our ability to observe.
I'm not bad. I'm just drawn that way.
I think with Jessica, I think they wanted to bridge the two worlds. But they didn't want to make her too realistic, and they didn't want to make her too cartoony, so they picked somewhere in between.
Well, Jessica was hard to design because in the concept of the story, she was Roger's knockout wife. So she had to be full of dangerous curves and had to be, everything you would dream of in a cartoon bride.
I'd do anything for my husband, Mr. Valiant. Anything.
If she was real with that teeny waist and the top and the bottom, it would just fall over. I mean, it's not possible. So that's the rule with animation. You have to do what you can't do with a camera. They knew that in 1905. Don't ever do what a camera will do. So every thing in animation should have an element of impossibility, but make it believable.
Get out of here, get me some money too.
Richard did some early tests on Jessica and looked at old 40s siren kind of actresses to kind of study and be inspired by great actresses of the period, and then was able to craft it into something that you certainly had never seen before and probably won't see again.
My offer stands firm. Think about it.
This is real important performance stuff here because this is where he explains his full philosophy.
113.
He's here full figure, and he's going, but I'm a toon. Toons are supposed to make people laugh.
Dick would basically sit with Bob at a Steenbeck or Chem going through the movie. And Bob would show the rough cut of the movie and explain where the characters were going to be and what the idea was.
It was very clear what he wanted. And I said to him early on, I said, look, I'll be your pencil. You know what you want to do. I'm your living pencil. Tell me and I'll draw it. So that's how we worked.
Making animated movies is like watching grass grow. You direct in slow motion, and you're endlessly giving direction to the animators, and then you get, just a few seconds of the performance every couple of months. And throughout that process, you can't let yourself get lose sight of the original movie that you wanted to make. So, okay, are we all set? Are we all set on this?
There were an enormous number of shots in this film. I think it was 55 minutes of total animation, which meant if you just back-to-back put the animation itself together, it was 55 minutes. A normal animated movie has about 85 minutes. But to have 55 minutes in a live-action movie is huge.
I remember Ken Ralston saying, "It's 2 years away and I'm terrified right now." And I said, "Me too." And so at several points I would go to the door and just yell, "Draw faster!" So it was, that's what it was like.
Roger Rabbit was a very different animation process than a regular animated feature. We started out, of course, with a live-action film, and I would receive a stack of photostats, and basically those are black and white printouts of every single frame in the entire film, so that I can put my animation paper on top of that and draw in relationship to that shot.
And we would rough out our animation over that and shoot pencil tests on it to get the director's approval. And once those got approved, it would go through the normal steps of in-between and cleanup, and then those would get sent into ink and paint, and it was a little different because we had to layer effects elements over all of the animation.
Zemeckis wanted these characters to be very, very round, very three-dimensional. Again, this predates the computer era with round characters, and so the effects department would have to draw highlights and shadows, and each one of those levels would have to be then shot individually under the camera. So the animation cameraman would shoot Roger Rabbit all alone, Roger Rabbit as a matte where they're backlighting him, Roger Rabbit's highlights, and Roger Rabbit's shadows. And those 4 pieces of film then would go to ILM, and using their optical printers, they would composite it then with the live-action plates.
As a company, ILM hadn't done any cartoon work, and this was a really ambitious project for us. We were much smaller than we are now. I think we ended up with having 1,004 shots altogether that came through here, and before that, the biggest show we had, I think it was Jedi, and it was around 300 or so shots.
At one point, people were sort of mumbling about, even way back then, about how 3D we could take this. Even like 3D early computer ideas, and I was saying, absolutely not. Because if you're trying to make, do an homage to these great cartoons, if you take it there, you're not there anymore. You've lost it. We have to find a in-between area where we're doing some shadow work, some tone work, some things that keep them flat, but it gives you the false impression that they're actually part of the world they're wandering around in.
If you hear or see anything, beat the horn twice.
Yeah, that's it. Beat the horn twice.
So the challenge basically was to try and come up with a way to make these painted cartoon characters look like they had some dimension. And the different characters, in particular Roger and Jessica, had a specific look. Jessica's dress shimmered. And these were just things, as far as optical printing or optical compositing goes, that were very ambitious for us in the sense of just both sheer magnitude and trying to come up with a look that was something that people hadn't seen before.
Get me some money too.
But really the animation process was very much like a photographic sandwich. It was where we took many different levels of animation, whether it was just the animation performance itself, the shadow mats, or the tone mats that we called them, and we experimented with those mats by putting color through them onto color film stock. And we would use rim lights, and to where the rim lights would be kind of like the light edge that would be affected by the key light, and we would use these other mats to bring out the darkness in the shadow areas to give it a sculptured look.
They had to develop a technique for compositing characters in out of focus. And that allowed us to do focus pulls from Jessica, for instance, who when she gets out of the car at the Maroon Studios and turns and looks up to the window, there's a focus pull that is perfectly logical in the grammar of film. And if it wasn't there, the audience would say, oh, there's something wrong with this shot.
So we had to figure out, with the background characters that were out of focus, what that degree of out of focus would mean. And a lot of times it wasn't putting the characters out of focus, it was the level of diffusion that we were using. So then diffusion on an optical printer could boil down to anything that diffused the light. So you can imagine, holding up a sandwich bag from your lunch in front of the light that's going to the lens and say, oh, does this look great, and having to do test. It got a little crazy. I mean, all of us were Looney Tunes by the end of it.